We are finally here. The last episode in the series about the siege of Plataea. In this episode, we are going to get broken promises, mock trials, and we are going to get to discover the fate of the beleaguered city of Plataea. Welcome to one of the bloodiest civil wars in Greek history. As mentioned, this is part 3. I would recommend you go watch parts 1 and 2. There's a lot of context in there, a lot of interesting information. If you don't care about chronological order, we are going to get right into it. Now, a lot of dramatic events have unfolded all over the Hellenistic world, but we need to remain laser focused on Plataea. Lock in, people. A year and a half after the events of our last story, Thucydides picks us back up in the winter of 428 to 427 BC, and he is describing just how bleak things are in the city of Plataea. Food supplies have dwindled to nearly nothing, and the people stuck inside the city are completely cut off from news from the outside world. Where was Athens? How long were the Spartans willing to sit outside the walls and wait? Are we just gonna sit here and starve to death, or are we gonna try something? Questions mounted, but one bold plan emerged: escape. The Plataeans asked, what if we could get past the Spartans' blockade? And what if we could make it to Athens and free our city? The hopeful Plataeans originally decided that everyone was going to escape, but the cold reality of their situation quickly set in and half the male population backed out. This left 220 of the city's strongest fighters trying to escape this Greek Alcatraz. Thucydides describes to us in meticulous details the Spartan fortifications.
Now the wall of the Peloponnesians was constructed as follows. It consisted of 2 lines drawn round the place, one against the Plataeans, the other against any attack on the outside from Athens, about 16 feet apart. The intermediate space of 16 feet was occupied by huts portioned out amongst the soldiers on guard and built into one block so as to give the appearance of a single thick wall with battlements on either side. At intervals of every 10 battlements were towers of considerable size and at the same breadth as the wall, reaching right across from its inner to its outer face, with no means of passing except through the middle. Accordingly, on stormy and wet nights, the battlements were deserted and guard kept from the towers, which were not far apart and roofed in above.
That gives us 2 concentric walls. One to keep the Plataeans trapped inside the city, and one to prevent any Athenian relieving force from coming and breaking the siege. I'm sure Julius Caesar is taking notes on this for Alesia. You can clearly see here, right here, is where Plataea would put its relieving force. If it had one! The no man's land between the walls housed the Spartan garrison, held their sleeping quarters, their supplies, and was all sandwiched between the 2 walls. How was Plataea going to counteract this circumvallation of the city? Those are some impressive fortifications. What would you do? Well, the Plataeans came up with a brilliant plan. Build a simple scaling ladder. Sparta was sparing no expense when it came to building these fortifications. Sparta was going so far to build their battlements with white plaster, coating their stonework to ensure it could weather any storm that came. Those layers of exposed brickwork were meticulously counted by the Plataeans. Numerous men took turns counting these bricks to ensure precision through volume. This is obsessive accuracy and precision through repetition. If only I had that kind of motivation in school. It is worth saying that these calculations were absolutely critical. The height of your scaling ladders is very important. If your ladder is too short, well, that's obvious why that's a problem. I hope it is, at least. If your ladder is too long, you run into a host of other problems. A ladder that's too long can be unstable, it's gonna be hard to move across the field without being spotted, and getting it in position onto the wall becomes that much more difficult. If you wanna learn more about why it's critical to get the height of your scaling ladders correct, I've got a video on just that. The height of your ladder is the difference between freedom and death. Make sure you watch that. With their siege ladders at the ready, the Plataeans waited for the perfect opportunity. And what better time to escape other than on a stormy, moonless night. As mentioned in Thucydides' description, during bad weather, the Spartans sought shelter inside their guard towers because the ultra-disciplined Spartans couldn't handle a little wind and rain. Now I need to say, guards in video games get constantly mocked for being completely oblivious to when the player is stealthing around. But ask anybody who has ever worked guard duty, it is the most mind-numbingly boring job you can imagine. And these particular security guards, these Spartans stationed at Plataea, have been here for a year and a half with absolutely nothing happening. No one trying to escape, no relieving army, no movement at all. So of course when there's rain, they're gonna go inside their guard towers. There's nothing else to do. When the perfect night finally came, the Plataeans snuck towards the Spartan fortifications. They chose a spot exactly halfway between two guard towers. One bizarre account of the escape says that the Plataeans wore one shoe on one foot. The reason being, they didn't want to slip in the mire. Now, tell me, this is a field of mud. Why not just wear two shoes or no shoes? Are you really going to change the amount of noise you make from wearing shoes? I don't know why this detail was put in here, but I just found it funny. A detail that does make sense though, the Plataeans were lightly armored so that they could move quickly and quietly. Putting their ladders in position, 12 Plataeans climbed the ladders first. 6 went to the tower on the right, and 6 went to the tower on the left. Daggers in hand, death in their hearts. While the vanguard on the walls crept towards the Spartan guard towers, the remainder of the force began their ascent up onto the walls. In an unfortunate turn of events, one of the Plataeans managed to knock loose a tile, alerting all the nearby Spartans to their presence. So to give credit to the Plataeans that stayed in the city, they began a diversionary tactic. Thucydides says they went and actually attacked the Spartan walls on the complete opposite side of where the Plataeans were escaping. So they weren't just sitting in the city being a bunch of bums, but they were still too scared to try to escape. During this ruse, the Spartan defenders desperately lit their signal fires to call Thebes for backup. Sparta calls for aid. In another display of tactical genius, the Plataeans inside the city lit their own fires and rendered the Spartan signals completely unintelligible to anyone who saw them. The first 12 Plataeans to climb the wall came down on the Spartan sentries in the guard towers and put them to the sword. They then barricaded the guard towers and took up arms inside the towers themselves, casting arrows and javelins down on any Spartans who came to disperse the mass of Plataeans. Once the escapees had made it over the first wall, their next obstacle came in the form of an icy ditch. This icy ditch and the second Spartan wall separated them and their freedom. But Sparta wasn't done just yet. Catching on to the ruse, 300 soldiers, 300 Spartans, if you will, rushed over with torches in hand to check what all the commotion was. These torches would be their undoing. It completely ruined the Spartan soldiers' night vision. This allowed the Plataeans to be basically invisible inside the darkness. Using their stealth to their advantage, they began to cast javelins, arrows, rocks, ice, anything they could get their hands on, causing the Spartan force to flee. After dealing with these soldiers, the Thebans began to cross the icy ditch. Luckily, they had their one shoe. This ditch was a nightmare to traverse. Remember, this is winter, it is a stormy night, there's a thin layer of ice over the ditch, that's why it's an icy ditch, so the escapees found themselves crawling through nearly frozen mud. That's just awful. Regular mud is bad enough. Thucydides does emphasize, though, that it was this abysmal weather, the rain, the ice, the darkness, that allowed the Plataeans to escape at all. So they must have been thankful for these horrible conditions. After conquering the Spartan soldiers, making it over the battlements, defeating the icy ditch, these 212 beleaguered Plataeans were going to march their way over to Thebes and overthrow the government in a desperate coup. That's right, these 212 men that were on the verge of starving, that are now half frozen from their escape, were going to overthrow one of the greatest powers in Greece at the time. I know this doesn't sound believable, because it's not true at all. They did march towards Thebes, but it was only to throw off their pursuers. And it worked. The escapees noted seeing torches heading on the road straight towards Athens, so these Spartan soldiers were chasing ghosts at this point. After marching towards Thebes for about a half a mile, our heroes turned tail and went straight towards Athens, but they used the fields instead of the roads to remain hidden in case there were any Spartans on the lookout. Now, you may remember I said that the original escape force was 220 Plataeans, and those acute listeners might have heard that I said 212 escaped heading towards Thebes, then pivoting towards Athens. What's the discrepancy here? Well, 7 men reportedly didn't even make it over the first wall. They got scared and went back towards Plataea. Now, for whatever reason, I don't know why they did this, but those 7 men told everybody in the city that the escaping force was massacred, completely cut down by the Spartans. What a great thing to say, right? Completely defeated by this news, the next day Plataea sent an envoy under the flag of peace and wanted to ask the Spartans, could we please have our comrades' bodies back so that we may give them a proper burial? There was one problem here. The Spartans couldn't produce any bodies. The Plataeans quickly realized the truth. The escape had worked. This ignited a spark of hope inside the city. Those escaped men can make their way to Athens, rally a relieving force, and free the city from this abysmal siege. Wait. 212 escaped, 7 turned back. That's only 219. Where's our last guy? Well, he was captured. And let me tell you, that would be my fate. I'm either the guy that's gonna knock loose the tile, alerting the guards in the first place, or I'm the one guy that gets captured. The statistical anomaly, the universe's cosmic joke. Our escaped heroes did make it to Athens, and after only 2 weeks, Athens managed to march on Plataea and break the Spartan siege. This is what I wish happened. At this point of the war, Athens was stretched desperately thin. They had no forces to come relieve a marginally statistical city. And besides, Plataea was doing its job. It was occupying some Spartan forces, a small amount of Spartan forces. It was holding true. Why break the stalemate? Tragically, in the summer that followed this daring escape, Plataea was completely out of food and was forced to surrender. Thucydides doesn't give us much detail. He does say the Spartans launched another assault on the city, and this one was successful as the Plataeans didn't have much fight left in them. Interestingly, the Spartan commander was told, do not take the city by storm, because in some weird Greek tradition of warfare, after the conflict is completed, all the lands and cities are returned to their original owners. I don't know why this is, but I guess it's just custom. If you know, please let me know, or if you know something I could read about it, give me that resource as well. I would love to learn about this. Just know that Greek warfare is a little bit weird. When Plataea was finally lost, the citizens in the city surrendered under the solemn Spartan oath that they would receive a fair trial. The Spartan troops did actually send out for a real judge from Sparta, a professional judge from Sparta, to come and weigh in on this trial. The prosecution, the Spartans and the Thebans, and as the defendants, the Plataeans that were forced to surrender. Doesn't seem like a very good balance of justice, if you ask me. When the judge arrived, he posed one question to the Plataeans. Have any of you provided aid to Sparta or her allies in this current war? Well, of course, all the Plataeans were forced to answer no. We have not helped Sparta. Thucydides records speeches that may have been given by the Plataeans to try to spare their lives, and the Thebans, which preached doom on the Plataeans. The speeches are recorded as such.
We alone helped Athens at Marathon when no one else would risk it. We fought at Artemisium and Salamis against Persia when all Greece was at stake. We've always been loyal allies to those fighting for Greek freedom. Pausanias, your ancestor, made sacred oaths protecting our independence after the Battle of Plataea. We didn't choose Athens over you initially. You rejected our alliance at first. When Thebes threatened us, we begged Sparta for protection, and you refused. Only then, when abandoned, did we turn to Athens out of desperation and necessity. We've been faithful to Athens ever since, exactly as Sparta would expect. Loyalty. from its own allies. We're being punished for loyalty, which is supposedly a virtue you claim to value above all. The real aggressors here are the Thebans. They attacked us in peacetime and violated sacred oaths. We fought defensively to protect our homes and families. Killing us violates the oaths your fathers swore before the gods themselves. Don't let Theban hatred and thirst for revenge control your justice. Remember our shared history, fighting side by side against Persia. We're old men now, helpless supplicants, throwing ourselves on your mercy. Grant us our lives and independence as Pausanias decreed. Think of your honor, and of the gods who witnessed those oaths.
Plataea should naturally belong to the Boeotian Confederation. Geographically and ethnically, they're Boeotian. They became willing tools of Athenian imperialism. Turned against their own kinsmen, they actively helped Athens conquer and enslave other Boeotian cities. Sure, they fought at the Battle of Plataea against Persia, but only because Athens forced them to. They're exploiting one good deed to excuse decades of hostility and betrayal. We entered Plataea by invitation from Plataean citizens, the pro-Theban faction who wanted reunification. We came peacefully, offering reconciliation and return to the Boeotian Confederation. They violated the truce by executing our 180 prisoners after promising to return them unharmed. They murdered 180 Thebans in cold blood during peacetime. That's the real war crime here. Plataea has been Athens' forward military base for attacking Boeotia for decades. Their loyalty to Athens is actually complicity in Athenian imperialism and aggression. Sparta has every right to punish cities that materially aided their enemies. They deserve death for their crimes against us and against Boeotian unity. Showing mercy rewards treason and murder. It encourages future betrayals. Greek law universally supports punishing those who aided your enemies in wartime. They refused to surrender before the siege began when offered generous terms. Justice demands they pay in blood for Theban blood spilled. The Spartan judge listened to these beautiful speeches, sat there, and thought for no more than half a second, and said, "Well, we gave you the option to surrender. We gave you numerous fair proposals to join our side or stay neutral, and you rejected all of them. And now you're begging for mercy? Please." He then posed the question to the Plataeans one more time. Have any of you done anything at all to help the Spartans or her allies in this current conflict? Again, answering no, the Plataeans' fate was sealed. Immediately, the approximate remaining 200 men in the city were executed. No mercy, no passion given, and all the women left in the city were sold into slavery, scattered across Greece, never to return to their homeland. So what happened to the supposedly sacred holy site known as Plataea, the place where the Spartan general Pausanias decreed, "This city shall never be besieged, should never be attacked, and anyone who does shall meet the entire force of Greece"? What happened to that exact city? It was razed to the ground. The ancient blood rivals of Plataea, the Thebans, destroyed the city utterly. In perhaps the most spiteful architectural decision in history, Thebes melted down metal from the walls of Plataea and built furniture. They used the rubble from Plataean foundations and built an inn. Thucydides notes that the Spartans in private, with barely concealed contempt, said, "Yeah, Thebes, I think you went a little too far with the punishment on this one." But Sparta went along with it anyway because they weren't about to upset their powerful military ally. Sparta betrayed Pausanias' sacred oaths for short-term political advantage. It's kind of a damning assessment of Spartan loyalty, if you ask me. The final accounting was Plataea was allied with Athens for just under a century. And what did they get for nearly a century of loyalty? completely destroyed. No help given. Rip bozo. The city that once saved Greece from the Persians was now destroyed for being too loyal to the Greeks. The oaths, they meant nothing. The history, it meant nothing. Plataea was gone. That was until a little kingdom known as Macedon, ruled by Philip II with his son Alexander the Not Yet Great, started a war with Greece. And in the last moment, Thebes, who had been allied with Macedon for like ever, turned tail, flipped sides, and allied with who? Athens. What? This is under 100 years after they destroyed Plataea. And what was the result of this war? Well, spoiler alert, Macedon won. Macedon won very handedly. And Alexander the Great would have Plataea rebuilt. Yay! Plataea gets the last laugh. Alexander raises Thebes. Rip Thebes. They finally got their just desserts, right? Right? Well, here's where our story ends. Plataea is now called Plataeis, and it is located on top of the rubble of the ancient city of Plataea. It has a very tiny population of 3,602 people. It's not the tourist destination you think it would be. Plataeis was a province in Boeotia, but in 2011 they merged and became an urban district of Thebes. And that's where our story ends. Plataea being irrelevant, a tiny town, no tourist destinations, and a suburb of Thebes. Hoo-wee! That sure was a doozy. Let me tell you, that Thucydides guy, he is not a brief writer. That being said, I did use Thucydides as my main source. I did fact check things here and there. If you know anything I got wrong, let me know. I am an eternal student. I do not want to live in ignorance. If you can show me the truth, I will gladly listen. On that note, thank you for listening. I appreciate all the time you can give me. Time is the one resource we will never get more of. You can never have more time, and you decided to spend some of it with me. Special thanks to my cameraman, Ryan. He helped a lot with the script. I know this was kind of a long series, but if I wrote it, it'd probably be 3 times as long. So thanks, Ryan. Let me know what you thought. Let me know how I can make this more interesting for you guys in the future. Let me know what you want to see. Just give me a comment. I love the interaction. If you guys don't interact, I'm just posting into the void, and as much as I love ranting into a camera about history, the interaction makes it all the more sweet. That's all I've got for you. Go forth, never trust a Theban, and siege the day. I should say never trust a Spartan.